Rambam, Maimonides' teachings. We're in the we're in business law, laws of acquisitions, purchases, acquisitions. Can be a very detailed. Well, everything's very detailed and nuanced. We're in chapter 4. Baruch atah Chelam Shem. All right.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. L'chaim.
Oh, okay. So containers own. So there's different ways that we've learned how you can acquire something. Biblically, for movable objects, movable property, biblically, if you exchange money, sufficient. Exchange of money. Rabbinically, it's not enough.
Yeah.
You have to make an act of acquirement, which would be to pick up, like here, pick it up, pick up the coffee, right? If I gave money for the coffee, right, that would not be an act of acquisition. But if I pick up the coffee, now it's mine. The sages did that in order that the person, because if you didn't pick up the coffee or drag the animal, right, then if it was still in the the seller's domain, you may not be so careful with it, may not be take such responsibility because he got his money, right? He got his money. So Rabbi said, no, there has to be an active acquisition over here, active acquisition, right? Through, as I said, either picking up, drawing it, and the like, to make it yours. Okay, now containers owned by a person can acquire articles on his behalf, whether he has permission to place them down. Wherever he has permission to place them down. Right. So in other words, what are we saying? This is also unique now. My container is acquiring for me, right? We just said you have to pick it up or you have to draw it. You didn't do that. Your container did it for you, so to speak. Right? It held it for you because it's your container. So it's like in your domain. Like, in other words, if it came to my domain, the thing, it's the issue is, what's the issue over here? The issue is that if I'm buying from you and it stays by you, I didn't pick, I bought a suit from you, but you're holding on to it, right? Well, since you got your money, you're not gonna be so careful about it. That's what the sages are worried about. So therefore, they say, no, the acquisition is only complete when I picked it up. Oh, because now it came into my domain, right? It came into my domain. It didn't stay in your domain. So at that point, okay, it's yours, right? At that point, it's yours. Another way of doing it is now it's your container that's going to do it for you. It's not you doing it, but your container is doing it for you. So once you bought a pallet of toys. So now that it was put in, you have permission to place down this container, right? And now articles were put into it, that finishes the acquisition. Okay. Once movable property enters this container, neither can retract. That's the point. Now you can't retract on your sale. But before it was put into the container, I can retract. You know what? I decide I don't want the toys. Or you can retract, I don't want to sell it. Even though money was exchanged. Right? Is that clear? It is
Clear.
because we're lifted up or placed in his home, right? Because it's his container. Got it? Therefore, a person's container cannot acquire articles on his behalf in the public domain or in a domain belonging to the seller unless the seller tells him, go and acquire the article with this container, right?
It's a very deep subject, baby.
What's that?
The jello's still good.
Right. So when we're speaking about before the container, there are certain places in the public domain that you on the corner of a place that it could act as an acquisition for you, or let's say someone else's property and you have permission to put it there, that container, right? Because if it's in your property, then obviously you don't need the container in order to make the acquisition. Your property acquires it on your behalf because now it's in your domain. It was delivered, right? That's clear? This is interesting because, packages we get sent by Amazon and so on and so forth. This will make a distinction of what is considered right, right? Because on Amazon, you paid for it already. It's not yours. Now we understand how the sages were very brilliant in this on how this would today. Oh, Amazon got the money. They don't have to be careful now with the product. So you got it, you didn't get it, we delivered it or didn't deliver it, right? We're not going to be so careful. But that, right? Because biblically, the fact that you exchange money, it becomes yours. Rabbinically, not. Now we understand. Wow, really fits today more than ever, right? Now, but let's say in Amazon, right? Let's say you have well, I don't know, that's not a good example. I don't know if Amazon's on, but let's say by the seller, yeah, the seller is selling to a wholesaler, and the wholesaler has in his warehouse a place where he has his containers for him, right? And it's there and you have permission to have it there, and you have it there once it's put into that container. It's yours and you're now responsible for it and not the seller anymore, right? Because put it into your container that you have in their warehouse. This is similar. He says, go acquire the article with this container because the seller is giving you permission to have the container in his property. Now, you have to agree to that. If you're going to say, no, don't put it there, then, no, I want to deliver it in, I want to deliver it to my warehouse, right? Obviously, you can create how you want. That's not the point over here. The point is we're creating the boundaries of the law. When is it become mine and now I'm responsible for it, as opposed to when it was yours and you're responsible for it. It was not mine yet that you're responsible for, even though payment was made.
Because we think if it's in the wholesaler's property domain, he is still liable if anything happens. Because
well, again,
even though they have agreed, right, to have your container in his property, but it is still in the confines of his property. If it is a fire, for instance,
So your insurance you'll have to claim it on your insurance, perhaps. Perhaps you have. You're mixing up with. First of all, you're mixing up with. We're here giving the parameters what Torah is saying, right? So we have to make sure we're working with the parameters it's saying over here. But for example, yeah, if I have a container, in your warehouse, and it's my container that is for my stuff, and that's where you put it, well, yeah, it's my stuff. At that point, it's my stuff. Now, maybe I'm hiring you to be responsible, but then that's a separate, right? But if I didn't hire you and you put it into my container, right? And and at that point, I'm responsible, right? If we made up, no, you're responsible. So then that's what we made up. We're not talking about what you make up between people. We're talking about what is the law. When it comes to these laws, if you make up differently, right, then it's what you made up between each other. That will be the law. But if you didn't make something up, then there's a parameter of what biblical law is and what rabbinic law is, right? But that's important. When it comes to business law between two people, what they make up, that will be the law, right? because you made it up. You agreed to it. It's on. That's the contract that you made between each other, right? So that's fine. That's okay. It's because it's not like you have to do it this way, but this is the law in Torah, unless you decide otherwise, right? It's not like because this is a law between two willing parties. So two willing parties, they can willfully decide what that contractual agreement will be, as opposed to you can't decide what Shabbos is going to be. You can't decide what lulav and esrog is going to be. No, that's God's mitzvah of how He decided. This though has that leeway. Well, Rambam is going to bring it up somewhere. I don't remember. He's going to say the point that I just made, that if two people decide, that this is what their agreement is, as long as you don't cross a law of the Torah of theft or something like that, or better yet, what will be the most likely you're going to cross? Interest, taking interest, right? Which you're not allowed to do. That's where it's going to be the biggest issue. Okay, excellent. Okay, number 2. Just as the containers belonging to the purchaser do not acquire articles for him when placed in the seller's so the seller's domain, so too the containers belonging to the seller do not acquire articles for the purchaser even when they are within the purchaser's domain. So you're the seller, right? And you have on my property, on my warehouse, containers, right? And now you deliver it and you put it into your containers in my warehouse. It's not mine yet, because it's in your containers, even though it's in my warehouse. Interesting. Number 3, Mesira may be used to acquire. Mesira means to give over, to hand over, like the reins of a horse, right? And one of the ways to acquire a horse is it's your horse, and I'm acquiring it. You gave me the reins, and I'm now walking with the horse, right? One of the ways, riding the horse is another, right? In others, with the giving of the money. If you didn't give the money, then there's nothing to talk about, right? Right, there's nothing to talk about. So Mesira may be used to acquire an article only in the public domain. So you add that horse, right? Or in the courtyard that is not owned by either the seller or the purchaser. Meshicha, which means to pull something, right? To drag, like, you bought a bed and you dragged it now, right? You pulled it, right? That's Meshicha. May you be used to acquire an article only in the corner off the public domain or in the courtyard that is owned jointly by the seller and the purchaser. Hagbal, which means to lift, may be used to acquire an article in any place. That's the preferred way, right? Why is that the preferred way? Because it's spiritual. We actually have to see the spiritual connotations over here and be interesting. So Mesira is only for large articles. It cannot be picked up, right? Like a ship, right? And they're kept in the public domain. So that's why it's okay. Meshicha is not possible. You can't draw a ship, right? So that's why you have to give over the ropes. Let's say the ropes to tie in, when you give the ropes over to the person, right? That tie to the harbor, the ship, you give those over. That's called Mesira, right? That's giving over, right? Then it becomes his, right? Because you can't drag a ship unless, right? So that's why that would be done in the public domain or in a courtyard that's not owned by either one. Why is that? Okay. Mashicha, on the other hand, to draw it, right, is in the both of these places are considered a private place for a purchaser at the time when he wishes to acquire the article, and thus it is like pulling it into his own property. Aha. So Mashicha, to draw, is like to draw it into your property. So when you do in the public domain or in a courtyard that's jointly owned, all the more so if it's yours. So it's like you're drawing it into your domain, right? Hagbah means even the domain belonging to the seller picking up the object of the sale indicates that one has acquired it. Right? Picking up. Yeah. Okay. The following rule applies when an article that could be acquired through Mashicha is located in a public domain and is drawn by the purchaser into his own domain or into the corner of the public domain. As soon as he removes a portion of the article from the public domain, he acquires it. Portion, what does that mean, a portion of the article? The Ravid protests this ruling. So the idea of Mashiach, right? By the way, spiritually, I don't know if this is what it says, but maybe. Why is Hagbah the best and you can do it anywhere? Because what's the whole point of a material object? What's the whole point? Elevate it. Elevate it. Right? The sparks of holiness that are animating in Klipas Noiga that are imprisoned. When you use it for God's sake, for a mitzvah, for good, you elevate it. So that's why Hagbah will always be the preferred way, and you can do it anywhere, right? Mashicha is you got to take it from the public and then into your domain. Your domain is a private domain as opposed to public. Public is multiplicity, not oneness. You bring it into the private domain, your domain, that's the oneness of God. So therefore, you have to bring it from a domain to a domain, right? Or at least that concept. So then it could be from as we said over here, from the public domain to the corner of the public domain, because the corner of a public domain is like back in the day, that's where they did, there's some privacy there, right? Not in the middle of the road. You go on the corner of the road, the side of the road, right? The corner of the building, right? It's sort of more private, even though it's public, but it's right. So you're drawing it from the public multiplicity, right, into the oneness of Hashem, right? That's the idea. Follow? And then I'm pretty certain this is what in Chassidus explains. I'll have to double check. That's fascinating. And Mesira, wow, I don't know how that fits in exactly, because Mesira was just like for something that's too large, right? You can't draw it, can't draw a ship, can't pick up a ship, but you can give over the ropes of the ship, right? Which is I have to look it up.
Beyond. By
Go ahead,
hand.
Tim.
By hand. Take it into the hand.
Yeah, but everything is like you're picking this up also by hand and you're drawing it by hand. So this is also by hand. So that's not adding something. The Masira, what's the problem with Masira? Handing over something. You didn't do anything with the thing, right? Here, I did something. I elevated it. I brought it from one public domain to private domain. I did something. So,
Potential.
doing
Potential.
that thing is what makes it mine, right? That's how I acquiring it. I'm acquiring the sparks and elevating it. I'm acquiring it by bringing from public to private, right? That's the acquisition of the divine sparks over here. But just handing over, right? Okay, in technical sense, handing over, it's because it's a ship, and that's not, you can't do more, right? Fine, I get that, but that doesn't explain the spiritual component of it, right? That's where I have to look it up. Anyways, it's fascinating.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna do a last halach over here. You with me? Yeah,
Mhm.
you following? Your brain is working, or is it fried already?
Pride.
Okay. So when there's a load of produce in the public domain, right? And after establishing a price, right, you made a price, all right? Until the price is established, neither the purchaser nor the seller can be said to have wholeheartedly agreed to a transaction, right? Oh, I'll buy that. I'll buy that load of that whole load of corn from you. Uh, and even if I gave money to you, or here's here's $300, and I moved it to the side. No, it's not a sale. Why? Because the price wasn't established. I just gave you the money because I wanted to make sure I get, no one else is getting it before me. So I gave you the money, but we didn't establish a price, right? So so there's a load of it's in the public domain, right? And after having established price, the purchaser then draws it into his own domain, right? I take it to my property, or into the corner of the public domain, because we said that's also considered somewhat a private, right? Semi-private, if you will. He acquires it even if he has not measured it. I don't know. Yeah, in the end, okay, it was only $150, right? But I don't know how much is in there. We established a price, but I don't know how much. I don't know if did I get, I'm wondering if it means over here, measured it. Okay, similarly, okay. So in other words, I don't know exactly the value of what I got, but we established a price. I don't know, did I get a 100 corn here or 300 corn here? Right? I don't know that exactly, or whatever. Maybe that's the exaggeration, 100 to 300. But similarly, if while in the public domain, the purchaser measures produce that he purchases, he acquires it item by item. For as he measures it, he's lifting it up. So here, I paid the money, right? I paid you the money, and I'm taking each corn one by one. Yeah, one by one. I'm picking it up. That made the acquisition one by one. And the Chiddush is over here, right? What's a Chiddush? What's a novelty over here? You would think you'd have to acquire the totality of it. No, you're acquiring it one by one. So what happens if in the middle I say, okay, that's all I want? I would think that I'd only have to pay for what I took. Let's say, You told me there are 300 pieces here, it's $300, right? And and I'm taking one by one and I counted. I said, you know what? I just want 150. It would seem to me that I could go back on the other 150. I'm wondering. Follow my question?
Mhm.
Because you only picked up.
Because I only picked up 150. I only picked up 150. I paid 300. Okay, but I didn't make an acquisition on the other ones. Okay, this is, you see, this is really complicated stuff. This is really, like, oh, it's amazing. Like business law, you can see over here the righteousness of Jewish law. And when exactly does something you acquire become yours, and therefore your responsibility as opposed to the seller's responsibility? When do the sparks of holiness become mine that now I'm responsible to elevate it?
Mhm.
Amazing. All right, folks. God bless you. Have a great day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Well,
Thank you, Rabbi.
then we have tonight, JLI. Whoever didn't sign up for JLI is very foolish because it's unbelievable stuff.
It is.
All right. I mean,
Did you get, excuse me, did you get my email, Rabbi Fines?
mail?
Email, my
Um,
email.
I don't recall.
Hmm.
Do you want to resend it? Because I don't remember seeing it.
Okay, you want me to send it now
Yeah,
or?
send it out. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.